The air in the bedroom was still, heavy with the scent of an expensive cologne that didn't belong to me. I stood at the threshold of my own home, a man who had spent 15 years building a reputation as one of the most meticulous forensic accountants in the city. My life was governed by spreadsheets, audit trails, and the cold, hard truth of numbers. I didn't need to hear the sounds from upstairs to know my marriage was a crime scene. I had been auditing the evidence for months. Sloan, my wife, was a woman of high taste and low loyalty. She moved through our social circles with practiced elegance, while her business partner, a local gym franchise owner named Rafferty, provided the adrenaline she claimed I lacked. Rafferty was a man of loud engines and tight shirts, the kind of person who mistook arrogance for strength. I didn't storm upstairs. I didn't scream. I simply walked back to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and waited. When they finally descended, draped in the post-coital glow of their own perceived invincibility, Sloan didn't even flinch. She was holding a thick manila envelope with a smirk that matched Rafferty's. She tossed it onto the granite island. "Happy anniversary, Elias," she said, her voice dripping with a casual cruelty that would have broken a lesser man. "These are the divorce papers. Rafferty and I are moving to the coast. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I'm taking the house, the summer property, and half of your retirement. You're a man of logic. You know the math doesn't favor you here." Rafferty leaned against my refrigerator, his arms crossed, a mocking grin plastered on his face, as if he had already won the championship. I picked up the envelope, but I didn't open it. Instead, I looked at the clock. 2:14 p.m. Right on schedule. "You're right, Sloan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I am a man of logic, and logic dictates that before you sign a contract, you should verify the solvency of your partners." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small remote. I pressed a button, and the television in the living room flickered to life. It wasn't playing a movie. It was a live news broadcast from the local station. The headline scrolling across the bottom made Rafferty's smirk vanish instantly. Federal authorities raid local gym chain in massive money laundering sting. Rafferty's phone began to vibrate violently on the counter. He didn't answer it. He couldn't. He was staring at the screen as images of his flagship gym being cordoned off by federal agents filled the frame. I took a slow sip of water. "You see, Rafferty, when you started using Sloan's boutique PR firm to clean the cash from your various side hustles, you created a paper trail that even a blind auditor could follow. And since I'm the one the feds hired to find that trail, I made sure every single cent was traced back to your personal accounts and Sloan's private savings." Sloan's hand flew to her mouth. "What did you do?" she whispered. "I did my job," I replied. "I spent the last 6 months documenting every business dinner you had with him, which were actually strategy sessions on how to embezzle from our joint accounts. I didn't just find cheating, Sloan. I found the fraud. And because I'm a man of logic, I turned state's evidence 3 weeks ago. In exchange for my full cooperation in the return of the stolen funds, I've been granted full immunity. You, however, are listed as his primary co-conspirator." At that moment, the sound of heavy tires crunching on the gravel driveway echoed through the house. 3 black SUVs pulled up to the curb. Rafferty tried to run for the back door, but he was met by 2 agents who had already breached the perimeter. Sloan stood frozen as the front door was pushed open. "Sloan Vance, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering," the lead agent said, his voice as cold as the one I had used just moments before. As they were being let out in handcuffs, Rafferty was cursing, his face red and desperate. Sloan looked back at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of terror and realization. She had thought she was playing a game of emotions, but I had been playing a game of survival. "The house isn't yours, Sloan," I called out as she reached the door. "Since it was purchased with commingled funds tied to fraud, the government is seizing it as part of the asset forfeiture. I've already moved my personal belongings to a pre-approved location. You're leaving this house today, just like you wanted, but you aren't going to the coast.